I'm really interested in becoming more clear on what reality is rather than ideology. And that's why if you've been with me for a while, you see me transform, you see me change all the time because I'm not interested in certainty. I'm interested in truth. And sometimes you can be certain about the truth. Hello, welcome to the How to Take Care of Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Veronica Wolff-Casey, and I am so glad you're here. Before we get started, if this is your first time with me or if you're a returning listener, please just take a second and hit subscribe. It really helps me to know that you like the show and that you want to see more content like this. So please help me out. Like, subscribe, send it to someone who might need to hear this. And most of all, just know how grateful I am that you are here. So today we're talking about when health advice becomes noise and why observation matters more than information. I've been working on the menus for my teacher Annie Hoffman's yoga retreat this week. It will be our 17th year doing retreats together. Annie teaches the yoga. I cook the food. It's pretty simple. It's been 17 years. And this time, as I was putting together the menus and putting together the shopping lists and gathering the ingredients and the tools from all over my house, I found myself kind of laughing because many of the foods I'll be preparing are foods that I don't eat anymore, that I can't eat anymore, that I'm not always so sure other people should be eating. But here we are. 20 years ago, this would have bothered me. This would have frustrated me. I would have felt this sort of dissonance. And there's a little bit of that here. I would have definitely felt the need to explain myself. I would have worried that I was being inconsistent. And I would have thought that if I had really figured everything out, that the pieces would just be falling together neatly. And instead, what I've discovered is that bodies are messier than theories. We want everything to line up in neat little boxes and checklists, but that is not how it goes. And so this got me thinking about something that I see all the time. People do not suffer from a lack of information. Most people are drowning in information. We have too many books, too many podcasts, too many experts. I don't know. I've lost track of the number of times someone has come to me and said, I've been on YouTube watching videos and I'm totally confused. I don't know who to listen to. I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. And I would say that the modern health crisis is not just a nutritional crisis. It's a discernment crisis. We have more information than any generation in human history. Like I said before, we've got podcasts, books, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook groups, artificial intelligence, continuous glucose monitoring. We've got lab testing, experts on every corner of the internet, and yet somehow people are more confused than ever before because information, unfortunately, is not wisdom, it's not discernment, and it's not observation. And all of that information can be whatever it is, but without your actual capacity to listen to your internal world, none of it matters. It matters in the way that you need to know what you need to know, right? But knowing too much can be a problem. When it starts to take you away, and I remember Dr. Anusha, one of my teachers, she kind of scoffed at the Apple Watch and other tracking devices like the Oura Ring and things like that, because she didn't want us to start outsourcing our observation. She didn't want us to outsource our information. She wanted us to get really, really good at discerning what was happening internally. And so we've got kind of an absurdity of modern health advice out there. It's called the expert problem. Too many experts. One saying, eat more whole grains. Then the next one's saying avoid all grains at all costs. Then you've got one that says you have to go plant-based. Then you've got another one that says avoid all plants. Plants are trying to kill you. I sometimes say that myself. You've got people that'll say count calories, right? Calories in, calories out. They'll tell you that that's the model to do. If you want to lose weight, you have to track your calories. And then you've got other people that say calories don't matter, but calories do matter, but they don't matter. But what does it mean? Then you got people that'll tell you that you have to fast, and then you've got people that tell you don't fast at all. Got people that tell you to lift weights, do cardio, do a cold plunge, do contrast showers. Got people that say don't stress your nervous system, and then people say that you need the right amount of stress for your nervous system. Everybody's got studies, everybody's got credentials, everybody has certainty, everybody seems to know what they're talking about. Everyone seems to have corroborating evidence. I'm with you. It took me decades to figure it out for myself. At some point, health advice starts sounding less like science and more like competing religious denominations. I'm not trying to mock anyone. I'm actually saying this with a bit of humor because it's just, you get these camps and people think they're right, and I can't blame them. And I'm one of them, right? I am a health expert. Like, I am one of the people I am talking about. But I think where my standpoint is different than most is that if you show up at my doorstep, or if you show up at my email box, or if you're looking for help from me and you come to me and you've got nothing clinically wrong, you've got not one disease, one issue, you sleep through the night, you poop like a champ, you don't even have dry eye, right? You don't even have a cavity. Every single thing about you is perfectly perfect. You're not emotionally blunted or stunted in some way. You're not having some kind of mental health crisis in another direct. Like, everything is perfect. You're living. Well, you probably wouldn't have sought me out then. But let's say you did. You're curious. A friend talked about me and you came to me with all this stuff. And then you told me whatever your diet was, even if it was like a standard processed American diet. You told me whatever it was, and you said, this is what I'm eating, but my life is perfect. I have no problems. There's nothing clinically wrong, yada, yada, yada. Be like, perfect. Don't change a thing. Don't change a thing. Stay with what you're doing. I would not try to make you go vegan. I would not make you go carnivore. I wouldn't do anything to shift what you were doing. Just be like, obviously what you're doing is working. Stay the course. Stay the course. Don't listen to anyone. Don't get it twisted. Stay where you are. And this has actually happened to us. It was when we were in Ayurveda school, and I don't remember if it was my class or a class I was assisting, but we had to get practice clients to come in, and our teachers would take a few of them and show us what a consultation would look like. So they'd sit down in front of the class with this client, and they would go through everything like a regular consultation, and then they would give advice, and just like you would with any practitioner. It was just like a show and tell, so to speak. And we had one woman, I think it was that she was actually, I remember it was with Dr. Welch, Dr. Claudia Welch. She was amazing, by the way. Shout out to Dr. Claudia. This woman came and sat down, middle-aged woman, if I remember correctly, went through the whole consultation and had absolutely nothing wrong. Like, nothing wrong. There was no imbalance. There was nothing. Her diet was fine. Like, everything, like, there was nothing to do. And it was such a good example of, there are people out there that are, for their constitution, for their particular situation, everything is in balance. But that's I don't want to say it's an anomaly, but it's rare. It's pretty rare that I see that. Now, we have reality, and the reality is that people are out of balance, and that's where they start to listen to experts to try and figure it out, or they go to doctors to try and figure it out. And I don't know how many people, like, I often laugh because I'm usually who people come to. Like, I'm the last one. Like, I'm their last resort. Like, if this doesn't work, we're throwing in the towel. It's all over. But like, I get people when they've tried everything else. And so what they're usually dealing with on top of it all is this choice overload, this decision fatigue. So Barry Schwartz has work on what's called the paradox of choice. And they did this JAM study where they showed that when they offered people fewer choices, they were actually more likely to make a purchase because more options often increase anxiety rather than freedom. We're constantly making decisions all day long, all the time. And so the more complicated or bigger the decision, so if there are more choices or there's more on the line, the more anxiety is going to be there because our brains evolved to make decisions in relatively simple environments. And when we come to the smorgasbord of health information out there, our brains kind of short circuit because we're trying to process 20 competing health philosophies at the same time. More information doesn't automatically create better decisions. It can create paralysis, or it can create what I often hear is this like deep frustration. And people even come to me and say, you're saying what you're saying, but I can go find 5 experts on YouTube that are saying the exact opposite. And this is because there is no one size fits all. There just isn't. There can be a one size fits most, but there is no one size fits all. Not anywhere, not about anything. And that I'm not even talking about likes and dislikes. I'm not even talking about desires and aversions. I'm just talking about our actual bodies. And this is where Ayurveda also got it really right. Is that one of the most valuable things Ayurveda taught me was how to observe. What my teacher was saying, what Dr. Anusha was saying about these devices that we're outsourcing our observations to is that they're blunting our ability to observe internally. And I think we tend to do that with a lot. We want some external expert to tell us that everything is okay. We want some, dare I say, grown up or more grown up than I need an adultier adult, right? Like I need someone who's more grown up than me to tell me what to do. And I'm not saying if you've got a broken leg, go to the doctor and get it checked out because that's an obvious thing. You don't need 14 opinions on your broken leg, but you also don't need 14 opinions on what you need to eat or what you should do about sleep or how to work out. We need to ask questions of ourselves, not experts. And that's not to say don't go seek out someone who knows more than you if you're learning about something or if you need more information. I need to say that strongly and loudly. But we also need to realize that we have a lot of information internally that we need to be paying attention to. Like, what happened? What changed? These are always the questions when I'm working with clients. Like, when did this start? I always say that. So say someone's coming to me with heartburn. When did it start? Do you remember when it started? What was happening when it started? What was going on? What was your environment like? What was your stress level like? What foods were you eating? Who were you hanging out with? Did you introduce something new into your environment? Sometimes it's weird. Did you start with a new skincare routine? We're looking for the variables. How is your digestion? How is your sleep? How's your energy? How's your poop? All the things I said, if you're coming to me clinically and you've got symptoms, it's very similar questions. I need to know all this information because Ayurveda is a system built around observation. It's at the very core of our practices as Ayurvedic practitioners as we are looking at everything. We are turning over every single little stone, every little leaf to try and figure out what the cause is. The theory matters, but the observations matter more because the observations tell you whether the theory is actually helping. Because you can apply something, and if you ignore all the signs and symptoms or you ignore all the information that's coming through, you will never know if the theory is actually working. And I run into this in my clinical practice quite a bit where people will change a lot of things at the same time to try and solve a problem. But then we don't know what solved the problem. if you change 15 things and all of a sudden you start feeling better, we won't necessarily know what of those 15 things are the thing that did the thing. And so I had to apply this to myself back in March of 2025. And you've heard my story before, but if you didn't, the cliff notes is that I suffered from depression and anxiety for most of my life, decades, to the point where when I was younger, they thought I was bipolar. Turned out I wasn't. I definitely was autistic. They didn't know, but it still didn't take care of all the depression, all the anxiety. And then my digestion, I had been constipated kind of off and on for most of my life. That was my normal, was to swing towards constipation. Not to give you TMI, but there's the TMI. My energy got really low, especially in the last so before March of 2025, I definitely spent about a year and a half, so about 18 months, really feeling terrible, of trying all these different methodologies, Ayurvedic practices, Ayurvedic protocols that were supposed to help, but my anxiety and depression remained. My sleep was just all over the place. My constipation was there. Nothing helped. I tried everything. I tried therapy. I tried different kinds of therapy. I tried every kind of food there was. I tried every oil. I tried different protocols for different things. I really went to town. I tried to do all the things that I knew to do. I worked with every doctor I could find. You know the deal. And then I started to realize that the practices, the theories weren't working on my body. And so I started to investigate other theories. I started to really think, okay, so what does my body need? Well, I had been getting pretty clear signals. And if I had been truthful about the observations I was supposed to be making in my own body, I might have gotten hip to it faster, because what I was realizing is whenever I ate sugar and whenever I ate seed oils, these are my two big ones that throw me for a loop, I would break out in hives, and sugar would make me super, super nauseous and give me like restless body syndrome. And I'm not talking like you've taken too much sugar and now you're hyper. I'm talking I ate, a modest amount of sugar earlier in the day, and then 3, 4, 5 hours later, I can't stop twitching. I can't stop moving. And then I would break out in these wild hives, like these long, crazy hives down the sides of my body. And, from my research, I'm like, okay, sugar shouldn't be doing that. But here's what's happening. And I can pretty much track it. And especially now that I'm clean, if I eat anything that's a little bit contaminated with sugar or seed oils, like, it's immediate. It's wild. But that was a big observation. That was a big clue that I was actually carbohydrate intolerant, but just desperately trying to ignore that fact. The depression and anxiety, I didn't realize it, but now looking back, of course, hindsight's 2020, I realized that it was about being carbohydrate intolerant. And it was all observation. I wasn't like converted. Nobody was arguing with me about what I ate. My body was arguing with me. Not other people weren't. I didn't have anybody. As a matter of fact, it was when I went keto and then eventually carnivore that then I got like pushback from people. But it's one of those things. It's like nobody was telling me that those were the problems. They were giving me more protocols that weren't working, because they thought, because that was the theory. They were working on the theories they had. They just weren't theories that work for me, because my anxiety became harder to ignore than the theories we had. My digestion issues became harder to ignore than the theories we had. And my sleep disruption became harder to ignore than the theories we had. And so eventually my body became much harder to argue with than my theories. I had to figure something else out, and I had to truly listen to the observations that I was seeing in my own body. And it wasn't easy. It was hard. But then it was easy, because observation, ultimately, the information is right in front of you. You don't have to do much to get to it, because you're actually observing it. Part of what was helpful, and part of what I think can be helpful, is figuring out the voice inside because when we have theories, or let's call them ideologies, even though it's not a good word, but like vegan ideology, people who are vegan or vegetarian, or even me, Ayurvedic, like even though I wasn't vegetarian, they you they become an identity. You've got this voice inside your head. E Everybody does. Don't, no, not like a crazy voice, like, just it's the voice that you hear when you talk to yourself. Like, if you right now make the voice in your head say, "Hello, hello, hello," and you hear it, so you're hearing the voice in your head. Yeah, you're not crazy. It's everybody's got it. It's the commentator, it's the narrator, it's the part of you that's constantly labeling everything: good, bad, useful, not useful, easy, hard, wrong, healthy, unhealthy, all of these things. But then the invitation becomes, can you observe without creating an identity? And so here's what makes it useful. Because if we've bought in hook, line, and sinker to identities, if we are the person who is vegan, or the person who is vegetarian, or the person who loves carbs, or whatever it is, the person that makes the most amazing cakes on the planet, the person who makes the most amazing bread on the planet, if we have these identities, when we go to observe, that inner voice is going to rail against that observation, and it's going to make it harder to get clarity. And that's really what happened to me for a while. I remember reading about carnivore and ketovore and being kind of curious, and then being like, oh God, that's a terrible way. I could never do that. I could never, right? We always say, I could never do that because that's not who I am. That's what we say. It's not who I am. And it becomes really hard to observe without becoming defensive, because that inner voice, hello, 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 that one is telling us all of these things all the time. We have a really hard time of simply noticing how something is affecting us. And I remember this when I was vegan. So, fun fact, I was a militant vegan for a long time, for like 10 years. While I was in the military, because that's a brilliant idea. Don't be vegan if you're in the military. It's really hard. But I was, after boot camp, I went back to it. Like in boot camp, I just said F it, and right, because you just have to survive boot camp. But then after that, I was like, yeah, I'll go back to being vegetarian and then eventually vegan, because that's the right thing to do. And I took that on as a absolute personality. Like I was a militant vegan. So I was telling other people about why they should be vegan and how important it was to save the animals and everything else. But I was not a healthy vegan, even though I was sort of eating healthy. I don't know that you can be a fully healthy vegan without supplementation. And I'm sure vegans will come at me for this. Go for it. But if you're a healthy vegan, I'm not talking to you. Okay. You figured it out. Good for you. I was not a healthy vegan because I was asking a lot of my body at the time, because I was in the military, for crying out loud, in Georgia, no less. So it's like 1,000 degrees and 1,000% humidity. And I'm trying to subsist doing hard labor a lot of the time, because my job was pretty physical. I was a first responder. And so I'm out in the heat in my uniform in all sorts of contraptions. And then I'm trying to subsist on like lentils and potato chips and, whatever soda I was drinking at the time. And I somehow thought that being vegan was going to be good for that. And it was not. I was really sick all the time. I was really weak all the time. My capacity was really low. My periods were really hard to manage. It just wasn't great. And I really wasn't interested in those observations. I was interested in defending my identity instead of paying attention to reality. And I see that a lot. People want to discount reality entirely in order to defend identities that aren't working for them. And it doesn't mean identities are bad, but I think observation needs to come first. Reality needs to come first. Our miseries come when we fight with reality. We have issues when we argue with what's really happening to us, around us. And that's where the rub is. And we have to be careful with that. and realize that there's a difference too between certainty and truth. Certainty feels good. I'm certain this is going to be the way it is. And we do that with our identities. That's how the identities get a little wrapped up in our egos and everything, is that we're like, this is how it is. And it's clean and it's neat. You can package it up and put it in your back pocket and it all makes sense. And isn't that grand? And we never have to worry again. Whereas truth can be uncomfortable because truth is that accepting of reality. Sugar did not work well for me. Carbohydrates don't work well for me. It does not matter that I make the best sourdough bread on the planet. I still can't eat it. It's still going to make me sick. Certainty says, I already know. Truth says, let's find out. I'm really interested in truth. Certainty protects the ego. That's the thing. Certainty protects the identity. Certainty lets the identity kind of off the hook of having to do any kind of what might be perceived as dangerous work. Whereas truth requires curiosity, truth keeps observing. Truth is a little dangerous. It's a little dangerous. And I think if you're really interested in what's true, you have to let go of uncertainty. I'm really interested in becoming more clear on what reality is rather than ideology. And that's why if you've been with me for a while, you see me transform, you see me change all the time, because I'm not interested in certainty. I'm interested in truth. And sometimes you can be certain about the truth. Water is wet. Not going to get any arguments. Fire is hot. Again, that is a truth that we can be certain about. So it's not that certainty is bad, but we want to also be interested in truth. And we don't want to be so rigid that we are stuck in an ideology that isn't serving us. We want to be able to work with our observations to discern what the reality actually is. So we have to kind of ask ourselves some practical questions. And they can't be locked in that desire for certainty or desire to cling to an ideology. So we have to ask questions like, what actually happened? Not what should have happened, but what actually happened. So when you're dealing with something, whatever it is, let's use sugar and carbohydrates in my case. We'll use me as an example. What should have happened when I ate whatever I wanted to eat is that nothing should have happened. I should have eaten whatever I wanted to eat. Everything felt good. Everything tasted good. And I never had to worry about another thing ever again in my life. But what actually happened is that I got nauseous and I broke out in hives and I got restless body syndrome, where it was just twitchy, 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 couldn't stay still. Terrible. Question number 2. How do you know? How do you know that's what happened? Did you observe it? Did you want it to be true? Or did you inherit the belief? Were you told that that's what it was? Or did you actually observe it? Because your direct observation is much more valuable than someone else telling you what they think you should have had happen. So it's super important. Did you observe it? How do you know? And then the last question is probably the hardest one. It's what evidence would change my mind? And if the answer is nothing, if there's no evidence in the entire planet that would change your mind, this tells us that you're probably defending an identity. And this is where we want to be careful. So just 3 questions. They're simple. You can ask yourself whenever you're trying to manage anything. What actually happened? How do you know? And what evidence would change your mind? So what happened with me? Sugar. What did I want to have happen? I wanted it to be fine. What actually happened? I got sick. How do I know? Because I felt it. I could see the hives. I could feel the restless legs, restless body syndrome. I actually directly observed it. What evidence would change my mind? It would be if those symptoms did not happen. It's so interesting. So the goal isn't to know everything, okay? The goal isn't to find the perfect diet. The goal isn't even to find the perfect theory. The goal is to become the kind of person who can observe honestly, the kind of person that does not believe every thought they have. Did you know that? Did you know you didn't have to believe every thought you had? It's a marvelous realization to have. I don't have to believe every thought I've ever had. It's fantastic. But really being the kind of person who can observe honestly. Honesty with yourself, which can sometimes, you ever lie to yourself, right? We've all done it. That's how addictions stay addictions, is we lie to ourselves. And it can be addictions to anything, but we totally lie to ourselves about it. We'll be like, this is okay that I've been scrolling on my phone for 3 hours on TikTok and I don't even know what time it is anymore. This is okay that I've eaten an entire cake. This is okay that I dug cupcakes out of the trash to eat them. This is okay that I'm going to have another drink, even though I told myself I'd only have it, right? So can we observe honestly? Can we be honest with ourselves? Because eventually every theory encounters reality, and reality always wins. Okay. If you're feeling overwhelmed by conflicting health advice, I'd love to help. Whether that's through the podcast, the newsletter, the 1% Collective, or working together one-on-one, my goal is not to tell you what to think. My goal is to help you understand what's happening in your own body, because that's where real healing begins. Please, please, please reach out if you need help. And if you haven't already, please click subscribe and like this podcast wherever you've encountered it. If you want to review it, that would be fabulous. You can find me at www.veronicawolff-casey.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. It's a fabulous thing. And then, in case nobody's told you yet today, I love you, and I'm convinced of your capacity to continue crafting a life worth living. Thank you so much for being here, friends. I am delighted that you chose to spend some time with me today, and I will see you in the next episode. Have a great day. Bye.